EU leaders are locked in negotiations on how to use hundreds of billions of euro in frozen Russian assets to provide Ukraine with a financial lifeline in the coming years. President Volodymyr Zelensky has warned that Ukraine will have to significantly cut drone production next year without it. Taoiseach Micheál Martin said using Russian assets would mean that Moscow was held to account for the war it has inflicted on its neighbour.
EU leaders have committed to funding Ukraine for the next 2 years, but how has been the question. As leaders arrived, there were officially two options: borrowing tens of billions of euro against the EU budget, or converting up to 210 billion euro of frozen Russian assets, the bulk of which are currently held in a Belgian securities depository, into a long-term loan for Ukraine. It's the latter option which most member states, including Ireland, prefer.
There has to be a deterrence against countries violating the UN Charter, undermining the sovereignty of other nations, and then destroying those countries, their civilian infrastructure, their energy infrastructure.
Belgium has resisted, fearful that a successful Russian legal claim could leave the country on the hook. It wants other capitals to share the risk, especially those which also hold immobilised Russian assets. By early afternoon, it looked like the Russian assets were the only option being considered, despite the technical challenges of providing Belgium with the guarantees it requires.
We have many hours of increasingly technical discussions ahead of us, because the countries which are the most at risk of Russian financial reprisals in the future, mainly, but not only, Belgium, are looking for safeguards.
Adding to the sense of urgency, Ukraine's president arrived to press his case, including with the Belgian Prime Minister Bart De Wever. He said the first casualty of a failure to secure financial support would be Ukraine's drone production. He also hoped President Trump would put more pressure on Russia.
And now the United States more mediating, it's true they're mediating between us. But I really wanted very much them more steps pressuring Russia, because I think that Putin doesn't want to stop this war.
That war continues to take a daily toll, and Moscow still proclaims momentum on the battlefield. Officials say Europe's determination to provide both financial support and security guarantees in the future will demonstrate to Washington that the EU is a reliable partner, and to Moscow that support for Ukraine will continue.
Well, let's go to Brussels now, where Tony is standing by for us. Tony, are they any closer to reaching a deal now on using frozen assets for Ukraine?
Well, Sharon, there is an enormous amount of technical work ongoing, because obviously now the only show in town is the Russian assets. The other option is essentially off the table. So you've got to bring a lot of officials and delegations together to ensure that Belgium will get the guarantees that it wants, to make so that if Russia does successfully mount a legal claim on those assets, then Belgium alone is not on the hook. Now, officials keep stressing that it's virtually impossible for Russia to enforce a legal case against Belgium or the European Union so long as those assets are subject to EU sanctions, and that's going to be the case for years to come. And if they did take a case, for example, to the International Court of Justice, then Russia could expose itself to a counterclaim for reparations by Ukraine. Nonetheless, they are trying to gather together a technical package which will reassure Belgium that it is not alone on the hook should something unforeseen happen. And of course, member states themselves will have to look at what guarantees they're prepared to put forward. Ireland may have to bring legislation before the Dáil to cover this kind of guarantee. But for the moment, those technical talks continue. My understanding is that a form of words, a document has been prepared, and leaders are now going through that text to see if they can approve it.
Europe editor Tony Conley, thank you for